you're on top. You want me to move that table over for you?
What?
The table, you want me to scoot it over for you?
I think it's fine. Are y'all good? I'm so glad that you tested.
It should be. They're hooked up. We'll see. Oh, let me take.
I think it is on now. I think it is.
I may be like in the wrong place for it. Good morning. Thank you guys for coming this morning. This is my first time to speak publicly to a group of people about goats or homesteading in general. I have spoken on different subjects before in the past because, as you know, as our life evolves, so do the things that we are passionate about. I think years ago I used to do a lot of not a lot, but here and there, speaking on homeschooling, because when my kids got up a little age, I decided, because we farmed, that that would be the best option for us, and it turned out it was the best option for us, not only us, but our kids. We were able to get into a routine, and we did that daily schedule until they graduated, and then I decided, well, what do I do now? And I had just kind of damply gotten into real estate. So I'm a realtor. That is what pays some of my bills. He takes care of most other bills, bless his heart. And he also is very helpful on the homestead. So this is my husband, Kevin, and I could not do what I do without him. I can promise you that. After homesteading, life took a little different tour than I thought it was going to take, but God was with me the whole time, and He just led me on the journey that I've been on henceforth. I farmed for over 30 years. I grew up on what I call was the original homestead. We were a family of 7, and if we didn't plant a garden, if we didn't have a few animals, like hogs, and one time I think Daddy raised a few cows for us to have over the winter. We did not have the opportunity before us to be able to eat, or I can't even imagine what my parents were going through trying to figure out how we're going to feed all these kids. Well, they did so because they taught us how to help them help us in our situation. So I think that was the original homestead. And then, life has a way of, you look at what other people are doing, how are they getting by, and for us, and for what our parents taught us, it was, you need to go to college, you need to get further education to be able to make it in this world. Well, look at where we are now. What are people doing? They're going back, and they're realizing, hey, what my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents were doing worked. Yes, it was harder than anything than we could possibly imagine, but it did help them get through every season of life. Whether you're trying to feed a whole family of how many ever, or if you just are trying to, till the land and live on the land that God gave you. Because you do have to take care of what God has given you. Be good stewards. So how do you do that? Well, animals help you do that. And when I decided that, at a point in my life where I did not think that I was going to start another season of life, I just sat down and I said, well, Lord, what do you want me to do? And of course He said, what do you want to do? Think about, what have you always wanted to do? Well, all those years of row cropping, and we were poultry farmers. We had a lot of cattle. We, had fields of hay everywhere, and it consumed a lot of our time. But what I really always wanted to do was have goats, and I was never At that time, goats were, in our way of life, not profitable. and they were not good for a whole lot. But so what I did, I started researching because I'm that kind of person. I'm a little nerdy about things, but I don't want to take on a responsibility of something else unless I know a lot about it. So for a whole year, and that's what I did when I decided to homeschool our kids. For the whole year before we started, I researched, and I knew, I had to figure out what would work for me and what would work for our lifestyle. So that's also what I did with the goats. I prayed about it, and before I knew it, I had 2 goats. But before I knew it, I knew I had to get things in order. And that's a lot of the things that I want to talk to you about today. If you're thinking about getting into homesteading, there are a lot of things you need to think about. Now, how many of you already have a homestead?
Ish.
How many you do? This is your homestead. Well, thank you so much for hosting us today. How many of you are thinking about homesteading? You are?
We're buying property right now.
You're buying the property? And where are you buying the property?
Somewhere around Florence.
Somewhere around Florence. Okay. Well, it can be hard. And those are some of the things that I'm going to talk to you about today as well. But I want you to know, do your research. Really search your soul on the things that you want to have on your homestead. And if you have a desire and a passion about certain things, first and foremost, I don't know where you are in this area of life, but for me, I have to pray about it. And if God gives you peace about it, He'll get you to it and through it. So, after saying all of that, did I even say what my name is? My name is Sharon Holden, and our homestead is called Threshold Homestead. And I was, before I met Kevin, I was cutting the grass outside, and I just, stopped for a moment, and I said, well, if I'm going to do this thing, I need to name this place, because I can tell you the place where we live was, God did it. So I was sitting there, and I looked around, and I've always thought about, how we're always on the threshold of something else. Opportunity stands on the other side of that threshold. And that just kept coming back to me, well, you really believe this, so it's part of who you are, and it's part of who God made you to be. And in order to get to where God wants you to be, you have to cross that threshold. And it can be daunting, it can be, you can have a lot of fears about it, you can even have those thoughts creep in that say, you cannot do this by yourself. Well, I'm here to tell you, you will not do it by yourself. You will do it with God's help, and you will do it once you make a statement of what you are called to do. Then God will put the right people in your life, and it may not be perfect. Our homestead is not perfect, is it, Kevin? And a lot of people, they call me all the time, or they'll message me on Facebook, and they'll say, hey, can you do tours? And I'm like, no, I don't have time. I barely have time to come and do a talk, but I really, really love talking about what we do. And if you stop me in the grocery store, I'll keep you there for about an hour. So today, like I said, welcome. And, I've talked a little bit why goats. Well, I believe that if you have an animal that you want to, number one, get to enjoy, you need to be able to have a little bit of profit enough to be able to sustain that animal. Is that always going to be true? No, because feeding animals is expensive. If you don't have a lot of land to rotate them into different areas, then you're going to have to decide, well, I'm going to have to buy grain, I'm going to have to buy hay, and then you have to decide where I'm going to resource that. And you may have this wild dream of, I'm going to feed them the perfect feed, I'm going to feed them the perfect hay, and it's going to be all wholesome and organic, and it's not going to be sprayed with anything. Good luck.
Hard to find.
Good luck.
Seriously.
So there may be things that you have in your mindset that you may have to change. So homesteading has a lot of changes that happen over a period of time. So don't get set in your ways. I'm at times very set in my ways. But I will compromise. Some of the things your friends might tell you about goats. If you say, I'm going to raise goats, what would they say? What are some things you've heard, or what would you say?
They like to find ways to die.
What kind you want,
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
And we'll talk
You
about
want
that.
just to clear land, or you want them
And how to
milk?
wrangle them and how to keep them healthy. Yes, they do like to die. They like to escape. They're problematic.
They eat everything you don't want them to eat too. I had mine eat some witch hazel and rose of Sharon and everything I didn't want them to eat.
Yeah.
If they got out or if we let them out in the front part of the yard, they were eating the things I didn't want them to eat.
Yeah, and they will do that. And you're like, don't you know that's bad for you?
Our goats can't eat certain things.
The
will
place
kill
that I
them.
bought has azaleas on it. Well, that's a no-no.
Cherry
That's
trees.
that's a big no-no. But it's all green and lush, and they really want them. Well, I did cut back the azaleas from their pen. I love azaleas, and I don't have the ability to go out and do, really great landscaping. So in the spring, I really enjoy the dogwoods and the azaleas and, the beautiness of that. But my goats that would be one of the cases where they're trying to die. If they're going to get out and they're going to go right to that area that you do not want them to go, then you have to make sure as best you can that they do not get out. Now, if you get lucky, like I did, we were blessed. A lady, during my change of life, I met a lady. I was cleaning her house, and she was just this unique person, and but she loved her animals, and I loved that she loved her animals, because when I got to go to her house to clean, I got to see all of her animals, especially her goats. Well, she was not your typical person that you would just pick out on the street to think, well, this person knows a lot about goats and I need to get close to her. She could teach me a lot. Because one minute she would be teaching you, and then the next minute she'd be saying a few words to some of those animals to set them straight. But I loved her. Miss Martha is just an incredible person that God put in my life. And I'm so glad I did. Well, after I had finished that era of cleaning houses during the period, we still stayed friends. And one day she called me and she said, I thought you said you wanted to get into goats. And I said, I do, but I don't have the setup. I don't have enough land. And she said, well, stop making excuses. If you keep sticking into that excuse era, you're not going to get anywhere. She said, we're getting ready to downsize. And I wanted to call you and ask you if you want to buy a couple of these goats. And I said, well, I want them all, but I could not afford all of those goats. So we came to an understanding. She said, you need 2 does that are already bred. And so I got a whole summer, and I was working at another poultry farm at this time, 8 turkey barns every day, and I was coming home in the evening, cleaning an area that I could put up a fence. And then they were redoing their horse fence, and so they gave me their horse fence, but I had to go take it down and put it back up. Now, mind you, I was 51, 52 at that time, and I'm tired at the end of the day, and it's hot. Well, my son, he worked out of town, and so I set up the corners of the fenced area once we got it clear. And I thought, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get it straight? But then I thought, it's okay if it's not straight. It doesn't have to be perfect. But she's waiting for those 2 goats to have a place to come to, so I got to get this fence up. So I did that, and my son, he kind of pointed out, he said, Mama, it's crooked down there. I said, it's okay, don't worry about it. So day by day, I got the fence up. And then I had to have a place for them to have a little shelter, because you do need shelter for goats. And so I got that up, and lo and behold, it was time for me to go pick up 2 goats. Well, I got the 2 goats, and they were already pregnant, and I just hopelessly fell in love with them. They were the best goats. I had the best mentor. So that I tell you that to let you know. It's a step-by-step process. But if it is your dream, you can make it happen. But it's not going to happen overnight. We're still not where we want to be. So anyway, then Kevin decides, hey, does she have any more goats that she wants to sell? Well, he buys me 2 more goats. And then we have 4. And now we have 25, 27, something like that. So it is something that will grow. But in my research, I did decide, well, what am I going to do with the goats? They have to have a purpose. And in determining that, then I had to do more research. I had to learn how am I going to milk these goats? Where am I going to milk these goats? Do I have to give goats that are pregnant extra nutrition? The ones that are lactating, are they going to need different nutrition? And of course, all those answers were yes. And then, so I had that in place, but then by the time I started milking, 4 goats give a lot of milk. If you got good milk lines, that's another thing, genetics. And then, and before we knew it, I knew that I was going to make soap because I liked cooking and baking and the chemistry. I had a lot of chemistry in high school and college, so I thought, you know what, I'm using all the things that God has brought me to over the years just to get to my dairy goat dream. And so I felt accomplished in a way that, if I were just sitting on the porch swinging, I wouldn't feel. So at this point in my life, I'm 59 and a half, and some days I don't want to go out, especially when it's still cold or when it's really, really hot. I don't want to go out and milk the goats. But it is, once you take on that responsibility, it's there, it does not go away. You can't go on vacation unless you have really, really good friends who will come and feed your goats. Nobody's going to come and milk your goats, I will tell you that. Not unless you have a really, really, really good friend. I've had some offer, but I don't have time to teach them. Because then that's another ordeal. When you're researching, you need to decide what breeds of goats you're going to have. And of course, there's different kinds. You've got the dairy goat, you've got the meat goats, you've got goats that are just scrub goats and they'll clean up your whole property. They'll eat just about anything. Now, it is a myth that goats will eat anything. Because the very thing that you want them to eat and clean up is the very thing they're going to turn their nose up at. And they're going to look past that area and they're going to go, no, we want that. And they're going to do everything within their power to get that. Your garden, for instance. And your tomatoes. And things they definitely do not need to have. Now you need to decide what size goats you're going to want to have. Now, Nubians that we have, we do have a few Nigerian, but that's just for fun and a little bit more aggravation. But the Nubians, to me, and from my research, for the milk that I wanted, were going to give me exactly what I needed. Plus, they're kind of in between a small goat and a cow. So if you don't have enough room for a cow, which I prefer goat milk for drinking. One day I do hope to have a milk cow, just so I can make butter and do all the fun things with the cow. But you need to decide, do you want a bigger goat? Because there are bigger goats than Nubian. Then you've got the Nigerian that are the small, and I will tell you, their AKA other name is Houdini. If you think you're going to keep them corralled, you better have a 10-foot tall fence, and it needs to be electrified. And then if you happen to get, by mistake, someone says, hey, I've got these 2 goats, they're Nubian, do you want them? We don't want them anymore. And you bring them into your calm herd that never gets out, they're going to get out. Because they're going to be mixed with something else, like a Nigerian dwarf, and they're going to be called a mini Nubian. So be careful, because they can leap over a mountain, literally, and they will. and they'll get out. And unfortunately, we live close to a road, so we have our fenced-in area at the back of our property, and that helps. But the saving grace with goats and them getting out, they will stay close to the herd. But now, if they teach your calm, cool, and collected herd how to jump fences, you really are in trouble, because then everybody's going to get out, and then everybody's going to be where you don't want them to be. They're precious. All right, now, one of our biggest challenges really is shelter, because you can do a simple shelter, it's not going to last long, and then you have to replace it. But if you don't have the finances right away to build something like this is a dream for me, let me tell you. I love it. It's just gorgeous. But if you don't have this, don't let it stop you from having goats, but you'll continuously have to revamp the shelter that you have. You'll have to update it, you'll have to replace coverings, because they will eat your coverings. They will eat wood, especially if it is made out of pine. They love pine. So just plan on having some type of shelter, because goats do not like rain. If it starts to rain and it's time for you to go out and feed them, just forget it. They're not coming out, not unless they're really, really, really hungry. And then when the rain stops, they're going to start yelling and saying, please, you didn't feed me. They forgot it rained. And then everything is still wet and you're still not ready to go out, but you got to feed them. And that brings us to the health of your goats. Now that is a big challenge with goats. You need to, when I say they need to stay on a regular schedule of eating, they really do. Their rumen depends on it. Their rumen is set up so that if you keep them on the same schedule, and I know it's impossible sometimes, believe me, I know, but if you keep them on the same schedule, then it will ebb and flow the way it's supposed to. But if they get off schedule, even if we went away for a couple of days, and my alpha she was pregnant, and then it was like she knew we were leaving. And I felt, she and I are very close. Your alpha and you will be connected like you are, not as much as your kids, but I promise you, you'll feel that same kind of bond. Well, she was standing at the fence, and I told Kevin, I said, I think something's wrong. She will also not only tell you if something's wrong with her, she'll tell you if something's wrong in your herd. So if you really, really, really know your alpha, you will really, really, really know your herd. Because if she separates herself from the herd and she comes to where you and she normally meet, and she just stands there and stands there and stands there, then something's up. It's either something's up with her or something's up with one of the other goats. So pay attention. Well, I got out and I went over and I said, what's going on? I did not want to leave. But we really needed a break. We really need a break right now. But anyway, y'all, I promise you, I'm not exaggerating. She had tears coming down from her eyes, and I was like, I can't do this. And yes, I was the helicopter mom, just to let you know. Anyway, I am also a helicopter goat mom, and so anyway, Kim said, well, it'll be okay. We got people set up to come and feed them. Everything's going to be okay. Well, when we came back, she looked different, and I thought, she should be progressing in her pregnancy like the rest of them. Well, what happened was she had a miscarriage. That was my first experience of loss within my small herd at the time. And so I do get very apprehensive about, even if we go away for a couple days, because that's usually when something's going to happen with your herd, and it does. But a lot of the issues right now with health of your herd are compounded by the fact that we can no longer get the medications over the counter that we were used to using. And I'm not one to, my first grab is an antibiotic. I'm not that person. I will try all the herbal remedies, I'll try the natural remedies, because I think that's best. If you can get your herd non-dependent on prescription type ingredients, then your herd is going to sustain a lot longer. Not to say you can do everything in your power and it still won't help them. You know, you can call the vet, you can do whatever. That's another thing you have to cross. You know, when you start working with any animal, you've got to either set the money aside for a vet, or you've got to come to the realization of, even if you call that vet, you may still lose your animal. You can do everything within your power to help your animal and still lose them. So are you capable of going through that? It is traumatic. If I lose an animal, even if it's a baby, I cry over it. It's that important to me. And you will do the same. So are you capable of doing that? Because there's a lot of loss in any animal husbandry. So just, you know, be mindful of that. One thing that you've also got to do in the health issue area is maintain your animal. You've got to trim their hooves. You've got to decide, are you going to disbud or let the horns grow? And be willing to, you know, understand that that is a hard thing to do as well. Once you start trimming hooves, you know, you're doing it for hours. And there's not much break because you want to get, you know, on a routine of doing that. When I'm milking, at least once a month, that's when I'm doing it. If it rains a lot, which we've had a lot of rain, you're going to do it a lot more often. Also, with the disbudding, I chose to disbud because in my research, I saw videos and photographs of goats that had impaled each other, gored each other. They will put each other's eyes out. It's just rip holes in the side of each other. They will also tear your fence down. That's the first thing they're going to do. They will tear a nice fence apart. So you have to decide. We chose to disbud because I didn't want the animals hurting each other. Even without horns, they're pretty rough with each other. And, you know, they're like a bunch of kids together ramming into each other, and you're like, don't do that. Just forget it. They're going to do it. And you hear them, and you're like, oh, how can they sustain that injury? But they do. It's part of who they are. Parasite control. Good luck. It's different in different seasons. So you have to decide, are you going to medicate them and kill the parasites? Are you going to try to treat them homeopathically? I try the homeopathic way. And I watch my goats. And I watch for the signs that they are getting out of a homeostatic environment within the gut. And you do your research, because it's different for every breed, it's different for every goat. Know your goats. Every living being has parasites. We are all walking around with parasites right now. How many of you are of the era where your parents gave you castor oil twice a year? Yeah. We still need to be doing that. We still need to be doing that. There are other types of oils that do the same thing. I use a type of soap in my goat's water. Your pH has an effect on the parasitic homeostatic environment. So if you're too acidic, if you're too base, then you are going to have an overload of either the good or the bad. And even the good bacteria and parasites are, if they're too many, it's too many. And it's going to affect your goats, the whole herd. Now there's one particular parasite, what is it? Is it barpole?
Yeah.
Yeah, barbapole, the bee pole. Anyway, if that hits your goats, by the time you know it, it's probably too late. So you have to do those preventive things. And some people choose to deworm once a month. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But what we do, from time to time, I give, we just throw garlic into the pen. I do rosemary. I'll go cut a bunch of rosemary, throw it in there. White pine is really good for them. And if you just see them just kind of, dragging around, I tell Kevin they need pine. And if you want to go and make pine tincture or the pine salve or the little pellets, you can do that. But honestly, if you've got a resource where you can go chop off a pine limb and just give them a treat, they love it. And if they don't need it, they'll only eat as much as they need of that, if you're feeding them and they're not just hungry. So those types of things, and again, you just have to do your research. And if you have any, questions later on, you can contact me, and I'm sure you. Yeah. So it's just decisions that you have to make. Now, in talking about breeding, we also have to talk about what happens later when you need to prepare for those goats that are going to kid. You need to have all your ingredients together in a bag, ready to go. Be prepared. Because the first goats that we had, they were okay. I had to assist a little bit, but I didn't have a bag prepared. I was screaming at Kevin, go get this, go get that. And he did. And your goats are not going to have their goats on the perfect day. It could be freezing. It could be rain coming down in buckets, mud everywhere, but you still got to get down and dirty. If your goat needs help, you've got to be ready to do it. This year, especially with the Nigerian, they're a little more problematic. A lot of times the Nubians will just squat and have a baby before you can even get to them. Some of the others, it's a little harder, especially depending on what you bred that female goat to. You need to think about that too, size and what size kids you want to have. Well, this year I had to assist a lot because we do have the Nigerians, and I don't know. It's like you just know what you need to do. It's like you feel it, and either telepathically they're screaming, "I'm gonna need help today. I'm gonna need extra help." Well, I think we had at least 8 births at times, and at least 3 of them I had to insert my arm up into the vaginal canal and help bring that baby into this world. And I didn't think twice about it. And some people would think, oh, that's gross, that's awful. Well, yeah, it is. But it's what you have to do, and you have to be prepared that you're going to have to do those things. Uh-oh, I think I might be running over a little bit.
It's okay.
Milking, have all of your materials ready. You got to decide if you're going to hand milk or if you need a machine. And there are different types of milking machines. You can get one off of Amazon that's cheap. It will be fine. Get what you can afford to get. You don't have to have what the best people on YouTube are using. You do not. But I will tell you, if you have more than 3 goats that you're milking, it's going to work on you. I mean, you can only grip so many times. But the bonus size is when you shake a new friend's hand, they're like, ooh, what a grip, So I feel good about that. Oh, goodness. Now, with milking, you have to decide, are you going to consume all of your milk, or do you want to sell it? South Carolina, you can't sell it. Not unless you have a full-fledged dairy setup. And that's very expensive. Now, you can sell it at this point in time for non-human consumption. Well, goat people know what that means. And I can't say today what that means. You just have to know. As an individual, I can go to a goat farm and purchase some goat for non-human consumption. But if I get home and by temptation, I'm like, I wonder what this tastes like. It's gonna be the best thing you ever tasted in your life. So, I mean, really, it is. If you can just get past the first time y'all, and I had, my mom had 2 goats when we were growing up because she had some gut issues. And I remember tasting it, and I don't remember being offended by it because there was very little I was offended by when I was younger and even now. But once I tasted it, I was like, you know what? And I have a lot of gut issues too that I don't have as many anymore. It's just that natural microbiome that is in that milk is so healthy for you. And what you buy in the store is not even milk. It's been depleted and refurbished with synthetic vitamins and minerals. So, you know, there's dairy farms in a lot of places, but they're selling the same thing that's in the store, pasteurized, homogenized. But if you want to be healthy and you are having some gut issues, find you a local either dairy farm that hand milks, they don't pasteurize, they don't homogenize. Then you make that choice when you get home, what you need to do for your health. I can't tell you what to do. But if you come over later, I'll tell you what to do. Now, I do use my milk. I make goat soap. I have made goat lotion. I use a lot of herbs. I make salves, and I've done the research. But I can't keep it in stock because I don't make it every week. I don't have time. But when I want to have enough stock to where if I meet somebody on the street and they tell me that they've got an issue, I want to pull it out of my pocketbook and say, this will help you. And you know, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about community and helping those around you also be sustainable, even if they can't afford to have a little homestead. We help each other. And that is the greatest reward as far as, you know, this journey that we've been on with having goats. Will I continue to be able to do that? You know, we're getting older. And the same thing that happened with my goat mentor, that's what did it for her. Because they will hurt you. You need to be ready for that too. Those animals that you love so much can, in a moment of, you know, if they're just playing with each other, if they're breeding, you need to have the sensibility to stay out of their way. They're not going to watch for you, and you can get hurt. I mean, I've fallen, hard, trying to catch a goat, and I've gotten smarter. I've gotten hooks, and we were chasing a chicken last night. I said, you know what, I've had a fish net in my Amazon shopping cart for a little while. I think it's time for us to get that. So, you know, you're going to want to do it until you can't do it anymore if you get involved in it. And I'm not just talking about goats, it's any animal. Because we've got some pigs, we've got ducks, and we've got chickens galore. And then, you know, I do want a dairy goat one day. When the real estate works out and I save enough money, I want to have a little bit more land. Because years ago I had a lot of land, and honestly, on the 2.5 acres that we have, I've actually done a lot more. That brings me joy. So, in closing, you know, the things that I want you to take away from this is, if you're passionate about it, do your research and just do it. Don't keep putting it off. Make things happen. You know, you got to have the infrastructure, at least sorta, enough to get by. But once you get into it, it'll evolve into something that brings you so much joy every day, along with the hardships. Now, I will tell you, this past winter was challenging, and even into the spring, because we had so much rain. And I'm not one of those who complains about rain, because I've been in situations in the years past where we were begging for rain. So I don't like to complain about it, but y'all, there was one night after work, I don't even remember what was going on, but we were having to struggle. And I think maybe one of my goats might have been sick, and I was trying to get things set up real quickly to get it separated. Yo, I was slipping and sliding. I had so many layers of clothes on, and I just could not. It was like I hit the wall. And you will hit the wall many times and you'll go, I can't do this anymore. And, it's okay. Have that pity party. Because I remember he walked up and I was crying. I literally wanted to just lay down on that ground and just have a tantrum. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. But after it was over and I got in, I got a shower, had some supper, I'd do it all over again, just like that, just to be able to have the animals that we have. So you can do it. Can you do it and have another job? Yes, you can do it. Just makes things harder. But you will work harder at your job just so that you can continue to do what you do with the animals. Now, are there any questions? I hope I've covered enough to keep you, your dream alive and not deter you, but I've tried to be honest too. Any questions? Okay. If you want to come over and talk to me later, that's fine too. But I thank you for coming today, and I hope that your journey will be the best that it can be, and it'll make all your dreams come true.